Wanting to keep my podcast sponsorships and advertisements free, I stayed away from such options. Instead, earlier this year, an alternative appeared. With my fiancée, we have joined a rapidly growing marketing network for a company which develops technologies and healthcare products based on traditional Chinese medicine. Instead of advertising products and services, I've decided to extend this opportunity to you. While this opportunity may not be for everyone and might still be unavailable in your country, I have no doubt that in time it could be, and therefore here we are. If you are looking for a side hustle, an alternative way of earning, and a space to grow as your own boss and manager, this program could be for you. Commission-based and fully remote, I believe it to be an opportunity for those who feel like a 9-to-5 model takes away too much of their life and isn't exactly worth their time. If you'd like to learn more, follow the link below. If your country is on the list, you're in. I look forward to working with you, and now, enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to the WS Podcast. My name is Wojciech Salski, I'll be your host for today, and before we begin, may I just remind you, if you find this podcast entertaining, useful, in any way, shape or form, as something that you look forward to and you'd like to share with the world, then please make sure to follow, subscribe and click the link below. Share it with a friend, it goes a long way, it helps the podcast grow, it makes my heart sing. And so, if you'd like to support the podcast, you know what to do. Otherwise, thank you so much for being here, and I'm glad to be back. Let's go once again. We have a third book on our journey through the fiction that is not necessarily that fiction-driven, if you think about it. And so today we will talk about The Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. Yet another one of those books that on one hand offers a great insight into our psyche and our turbulations and troubles, and on the other is definitely a great entertainment and something that you can certainly enjoy, even if sometimes it does make you wonder whether or not we are going astray in some ways. So today yet again I will have I have some notes on screen I've prepared, and I understand that some of you might have not yet read the book Brave New World, and therefore I'm actually gonna refrain from delving into the intricacies of the story. I might give you a few spoilers simply by maybe alluding to some topics, but as I explained at the very beginning of this journey of ours with fiction books, I want to give you a perspective on these ideas, something that resonated with me, and so I'm hoping that it might resonate with you. But I don't want to spoil the fun, right? Ultimately, I want you to take away from this episode an inspiration to go and actually enjoy the book for your own. So I hope that this is going to be some of those things that inspires you, and basically you just order from the link below or from any other link, and you start reading, because I would definitely recommend, and I think it's yet again one of those books that is somewhat of a compulsory read in our day and age. And so here we are. Now, in terms of the topics I would like to share with you today, the first one is, I think, particularly up to date with our day and age, and this basically is this idea of dehumanizing effects that technology and technological control might have on us over our lives. We are communicating more and more via all kinds of media, social media. Right now you're listening to this podcast, you probably are using either your laptop or your phone. Maybe you're on the go, maybe you're listening to it in your earphones. So there's a lot of moving technological parts that are by now a part of our everyday life. I can't imagine life without my phone most of the time, especially when it comes to the utility that it grants me. And so, of course, we've discussed, the challenges around especially screens and phone usage in children, for example, in the anxious generation, which I will link below for you. But actually, in the Brave New World, in this sort of one could argue a dystopic future, although some could also argue that it's a utopia instead. Technology plays a grand role in providing people, citizens of this Brave New World, with all kinds of support and all kinds of restraint, right? This control by submitting some of your power in exchange for support, for comfort, for pleasure. It's an ongoing theme, as we've explored in both 1984 and Animal Farm. It does seem that the trade-off can be made, and often is made, on the side of submitting some of our freedoms, some of our independence, in exchange for some sort of incentives. Maybe they are related to our happiness, to our satisfaction, to our comfort, to our security. And so, first the quote here, the quote that it's, as you'll explore in the book, I don't want to share too much, but one of the characters is not necessarily going with the spirit of the community in which they live. And so at some point they make this speech, and this is one of the quotes: "But I don't want comfort. I want God. I want poetry. I want real danger. I want freedom. I want goodness. And I want sin. I want goodness and I want sin." So this character and this sort of challenge that they make is that it's a human need, in a way, I guess, to wish for all of those things that could be taken away on behalf of comfort and security. It reminds me of this idea of conformity and going with the flow of the crowd. There is certainly some sort of security, some sort of comfort to be gained from going with the party line, or falling in line, as we say. But this character in particular, the struggle that they're going through, is related to this idea that we want meaning in life, and meaning and contrasting feelings and troubles and tribulations and all kinds of both great highs and great lows. All of it is part of human experience, and the more you numb it, the more you take away from it, the less humane we might feel. And of course, some could say, but we've extinguished all the suffering, there is no more suffering in the world. But others could argue, yes, but at the price of extinguishing all the pleasure as well and all the satisfaction. There is something to be said, and I think, you don't have to look far to see people who, by overcoming struggle, found meaning in their everyday life or in their efforts. And in the same way as you need to know how it feels to be hurt, to appreciate when you're not hurt, in the same way, you should probably know how it feels to feel happy and satisfied and filled with pleasure and joy, to recognize when you're not. And taking anything to extreme, I think, is, not positive in a sense of helpful. I do believe that a big part of our everyday struggles comes from not being able to find the middle way. And so we go from extreme to extreme, some of us extremely lay everything on the side and, decide to live in apathy and lack of action. And then some of us overstress and overwork and over activate ourselves instead of allowing ourselves to simply find that middle way where on one hand you allow yourself to work hard when it's needed to work hard, and on the other you allow yourself to relax and to enjoy the moment and to accept that sometimes it's not going to work your way, simply because it is a part of life to do so. Now, in terms of the technology here, in the Brave New World, as the story sort of unfolds, we observe more and more technological advances that have been used to perfect a society. In a way, they remove the struggle, they remove the passion, they remove the moral complexity. There is no internal conflict in the majority of the characters because everything is done for them, and there is a set path for everyone, to the point that people are literally designed and destined to be in a certain space in the society. And as much as that might be comfortable for someone who's lost, it's also a complete absence of freedom of choice, right? If it's all established for you from the beginning, as much as you might like the comfort of it, it's certainly not something that you've chosen for yourself fully, right? At some point, the observation could be made that, prioritizing efficiency and basically prioritizing control over humanity simply dehumanizes and ends putting us into this conundrum of lack of choice. Ultimately, I think, you have a choice right now. Like, you could pick up this phone and scroll for the next few hours, or you could go outside and enjoy the sun. And if there is no more sun, maybe it's raining, you can appreciate the fact that it's raining, because maybe there are days when it's too sunny and you would like a little rain. The difference between the two is one is very easy and one demands of you a certain action and demands of you to recognize that you might not be fully acceptant of the matter, right? This is where the dissatisfaction comes to play. Dissatisfaction means a sort of an outside of the norm or lack of satisfaction. And these technologies that we could use, and we are already there in terms of many of the technologies that Aldous Huxley offers us in his story of the potential future, many of these technologies are already here, both in terms of controlling us, in terms of controlling our attention and shortening our attention span, in terms of allowing us to find pleasure in places that don't necessitate human connection, ultimately making us even less likely to connect to one another. And I think the series of short stories such as Black Mirror or Love, Death, Robots on Netflix those are the kind of dystopian sometimes, and sometimes utopians if you want, stories that truly make me shudder at the possibilities that are ultimately endless. And we already have designer babies. We can already change people's genes to the point that we can literally create a different human. So it's not far in terms of technology to be able to get a brave new world in our world. It's just a matter of whether or not we allow it to be the case, because we strive towards it, and therefore we allow our leaders and people in power to do so. Especially right now with social media algorithms, biotechnology advancements, and basically AI changing the rules of the game, we might find ourselves losing our agency on behalf of these technologies. And so, I don't want to spoil too much for you, so I'll maybe leave it at that. But there is definitely something to be said at the in terms of the debate on our mental health versus technology, and how especially contemporary medicine seems to address the issues that both technology and our advancements raise in our lives with more of the same. So instead of taking some of our past back and reconnecting with nature and understanding and reconnecting with our bodies and appreciating more natural ways of being, which were passed down through generations before we've developed these technologies and suddenly changed it all, because there is not much profit to be made from that approach, there seems to be a different promise being made, a promise that through technology, through disconnecting from reality, through potentially uploading to a server where everything's perfect because you were able to design it, you will feel more yourself. But my personal take on it is not necessarily. And so yeah, it's one of those things, it's a long discussion to be had for sure. And hopefully, luckily, there are some voices raising these issues. But as you read the book, you'll see how many parallels you might observe from our previous recent years and from the situations that we encounter on the daily basis. Now, this second point is particularly close to my heart because I observe it in my generation, in my friends, and especially in younger generation than myself. This illusion of happiness through escapism, right? So you're by the way, you're very welcome to completely disagree with my take. This is simply my perspective on the matter. But I do believe that a major part of our free time consumption, free time entertainment has been designed in a way that both curbs our creativity and renders us docile, or at least more docile, less likely to take action than ever before. Think about it. You have endless streams of entertainment offered to you on all the platforms. And quite frankly, my podcast is one of them. I do hope, though, that my podcast, because of the nature of it, is not necessarily entertaining per se, rather inviting to actually consider and maybe on this point get out there rather than stay in. But think about it. The majority of things that you can do when you're home in terms of consumption of media, you could do for hours, days, weeks, months, years on end and never be satisfied. In terms of like, if you wanted to commit to watching all the movies on Netflix, I don't think you would have enough life in your lifetime to do so. If you wanted to spend all your life playing games, there is so many of them, I don't think you would be able to finish them all before the end of your life. And so it goes, both through books, which supposedly are a bit better in terms of actually making you do the work, because books allow you to imagine these things rather than, a kind of wolf it in through a fast food of screen-based media. Nevertheless, they are also entertainment, and they could also be used as an escape from reality. And then on top of that, you have all the other things, right? All the different apps that supposedly connect us with others and at the same time disconnect us when we're together with them. Nowadays, you can get everything you need to your doorstep. Ultimately, you're paying the price for it, of course, because the quality of food that people deliver to you is unlikely to match that if you cooked yourself. But, especially if you're rich, you could get away with ordering very fancy food every day, very healthy, and never leaving your house. And so all these opportunities, all these pleasures, all these comforts, right? It is comfortable. Let's be honest, right? It is comfortable. And it's wonderful and it's amazing. And like never before was there a time, think about it, never before was there a time of such abundance that more people are struggling with obesity and dying of diseases related to obesity than those dying of hunger. It's a fact. Check it out. It's like, obviously I'm not saying this is better. Ultimately, I think no one should be dying of prior to their, let's say, planned date of death of old age. We simply exchanged one trouble for another, but it does tell the tale. And, the mental health crisis and all the stories around it, all of this comes down to this idea that we have so much to consume, and we do, especially in the Western, in the more developed countries, not necessarily Western only. And so here, the book addresses this idea by providing us with this artificial happiness drug, which is called Soma. And not only that, but also a setup in which promiscuity, basically sleeping around, and mindless entertainment in a form that is literally like fast food to the core, chemically based, of course, basically allows the citizens of this brave new world to live in constant happiness of a sort, in constant satisfaction. Of course, it's not true satisfaction. One could argue what's real, what's not, but in terms of how you understand it right now in your life, it's not that. It's chemically driven, and it's based on very different morals than what you're likely to adhere to, especially if you're listening to this podcast. But the quote, for example, here is 1 cubic centimeter cures 10 gloomy sentiments. This is the description, the advertising description of the Soma drug, which allows you to simply switch off your problems. And, you don't have to look far for such examples nowadays. You already have a huge industry that deals in psychotropic drugs that allow you to feel perfect no matter what, and basically medicine that allows you to alter your mind and disconnect, disassociate. And, I've never, thank God, I'm very grateful for that. I've never experienced anyone in my family or in my close friendships being affected by such substances, but I can only imagine how challenging it must be to be with a person that is so disconnected from this world that simply you're with them and you don't feel they are there. And of course, Soma offers just that, right? You think too much about your problems? No problem. Just take Soma and you'll be fine. You're starting to wonder why and should we live that way? Oh, watch out. You should probably take Soma. You'll be fine. these are the themes and the actions that are taken in the story that basically put critical awareness and all kinds of self-awareness on hold, right? This dystopia seduces its citizens into submission, basically by allowing escapism, right? Instead of scaring you to do something, they offer you so many incentives to not care through chemical, substances, as well as some activities, that you don't have a reason to wander. You don't have the reason to rebel. You simply are too comfortable, too happy to care. It reminds me of WALL-E. Of course, if you've watched Pixar's animation WALL-E, and the portrayal of humans in that dystopian future, it's certainly something that I can also envision for the future as well, if we don't really take care of ourselves over time. Comfort makes you docile. We've talked about it earlier. And I think this is particularly problematic for young people, because it's all good and fair to be docile and lazy at the end part of your life, when you're already done with the majority of things and you can sort of reap the benefits of your work and enjoy the cool down period of your activity. But I do believe that it's both mentally and physically unhealthy to be docile and to stay indoors too much, to escape into movies, games, applications, mindless scrolling, consumption, and ultimately not take care of yourself, not develop new skills, not develop new friendships, not develop new relationships, not develop your muscles, not develop your brain cognitive skills, and so forth. Of course, this is my opinion, and you might enjoy. I think that this is obviously that you do enjoy. That's a wrong way to put it. You might be of a different attitude, and your argument could be that your life is much easier and much more pleasurable because you stay indoors, because you constantly scroll, because you don't want to know. And my reaction to that is probably this is likely to be a symptom of the apathy and the trouble that you already have. We've talked about that so many times. Ignorance is bliss, but once you realize you're ignorant, it's up to you. It's not easy to start learning and growing and understanding that the world is not as simple and as pleasant as it may seem on screen, but at the same time, it's certainly much more positive in development and self-development to do so. So I would urge you not to be docile, and I would urge you not to be comfortable, not to seek comfort over anything else. I think it's a sign that you should probably do something hard if you consider comfort and pleasure to be of your utmost importance. Simply because I think life will go by, and if you spend the golden years of your life, the best time when you're young and strong and you have so much potential, without developing things, without developing your ideas, your mind, your body, you might just wake up someday into the future when you do become self-aware, realizing that you've wasted this time. And that must be a really, really sad realization. So, of course, I think this topic in particular is relevant because we've already experienced how social media and contemporary media, legacy media as they call them, can lie to us for our so-called benefit, to keep us comfortable and to keep us safe. How we can be manipulated if we don't think for ourselves. And this is something that is happening every day, all the time, everywhere. There are some agendas being pushed on you at all times. Ultimately, it's very difficult, I think, these days, and you really need to be very picky to find sources of information and people that do not want to get something out of you for your attention, for your money, for your time, for your whatever, for your health. And because of it, we need to be aware, and we should not sacrifice our self-awareness for this happiness that is being offered to us. So I think this part of the book and these themes that the book covers are definitely something to reflect upon in terms of deciding what you want, whether you want fleeting happiness or whether you want meaningful life. And, connected to the first point, it's whether you want quick fix and a fast food-like state, or whether you want meaningful and fulfilling life with all its trials and tribulations. So, Huxley had a point, and I think, however you want to understand his book, the theme of becoming over-reliant on our feels and what feels good, and under-relying on what is meaningful, is definitely something that over time can render us completely useless and docile, and therefore manipulable, malleable very easily by companies, organizations, people, and so forth. Now, the third point in the book, the third theme that I wanted to explore with you today, is related to this loss of individuality. Basically becoming a conformist, a conforming person, right? Conforming to the crowd, becoming a part of the crowd. It's very interestingly shown because in the book, even though there are so many speeches and explorations of the theme that everyone is different and everyone is special, you can see as you read it that it's exactly the same. So, even though it's portrayed as if it's a perfect life for everyone, actually, the perfect life might exist, but it's abandoned. It's a complete abandonment of any individual choice, individual freedom, and individuality. Ultimately, it's frowned upon or blatantly oppressed if you stand against the crowd, if you stand out, basically. And if you think about it, I think in many ways this is already a case for us in many countries worldwide, and I would argue that always was. Of course, there are some morals that the majority of us might adhere to willingly. I think there are some truths that are likely to be agreed upon by the majority of the world simply by the majority of the world simply because they are a part of human experience, right? I do wonder though just how much of our everyday actions, efforts, and the ways we act is dependent on the societal norms and on the pressure that is put on us. And now, before I jump into this topic from the book's perspective, I just wanted to offer you a little perspective from my experience, from my work. So there is this interesting thing that I have observed, that depending on the office's culture, people will act differently. And so, for example, in one of the offices, it's fairly normal. It's especially that you are only paid up until a certain time in the day. It's fairly normal to go home after that time, regardless of just how much more work can be done. And if you've ever worked on projects, you know that there is always more work to be done. That's just how it works. So if you really want to, you could work non-stop for the whole year and never actually run out of work to do. Now, in some other offices, there is an unspoken sort of a culture that no one knows when started, but at this point is in full mode, that people stay late, and it's just a thing. When I asked why they do it, the most common answer is because everyone else does. And so this conformist society, conformist culture is formed, where even though you are not actually awarded anything or reimbursed or praised in any way for that extra effort that you're putting in, ultimately for your wasted time, because you're wasting your lifetime. You're not actually earning money at the time, you're simply just there because everyone else is, so you're slaving away for free. And yet, because of this societal pressure, because of this tension that is set there, that basically this expectation that everyone does it, unless you're willing to be chastised and unless you're willing to speak up, you just fold in and you just join in this madness of working late without being paid because everyone else does. And in that same way, I think, this is just the echo, an example of how conformist we are in terms of our everyday lives anyway. And I don't think you would struggle much, and maybe think about it for a moment, I don't think you would struggle much to find areas of your life or places that you attend or groups of people that you spend time with that have a certain feel, a certain expectation from you that you adhere to simply because that's the way it is. And so, I would urge you to recognize that, and I would urge you to doubt it, or maybe to think for yourself whether or not you're okay with that. Of course, there are some norms we want to change, and that's fine. We should be law-abiding citizens and all of that. But we should always be able to consider if something is okay and if something's okay for us to attend to, adhere to. And we should not allow peer pressure or societal pressure in those personal choices to affect us. Now, in the book, the quote from the book is one of the explanations of the philosophy of the party in charge, which says, when the individual feels, the community reels. And so, of course, individuality is eradicated both through social engineering and conditioning, right? They basically ensure that everyone has a predetermined role and they fit into that role perfectly. They literally have a set of castes, sort of societal structure groups that don't allow for any personal aspirations. They don't allow for any unique identity or unique, way of acting. And the sacrifice of conformity is made on behalf of the human spirit, basically to ensure that there is no one making trouble. And if you think about it, this is exactly why, and this is so tragic. In Gulag Archipelago, which I've linked below as well, we've explored this and we've talked about it in Animal Farm as well. It just so happens that when the dictatorial regimes come to power, it's often people who think for themselves that are being killed first to get rid of. And this is usually because those people can think for themselves, so they are less likely to be manipulated, to fall prey to manipulation and propaganda. And that's why, on this story, people who don't adhere, people who make those speeches, as we've heard at the very beginning, are actually considered to be a danger to the society. And for good reason, because if you can append the reasons why we are here to begin with, then others could follow, and ultimately you could potentially, if you are in power, you could lose that power simply because the society stops believing your manipulating and your lies. Of course, this, yet again, is a theme that I think resonates with all of us. As I said, I see it in work. I see it in the way people act. We've discussed in Thinking Fast and Slow and the Parasitic Mind, which I'll link below as well. We've discussed this idea of groupthink and madness of crowds that we tend to, majority of us unfortunately, and I think everyone does at some point, sometime, we allow ourselves to be fooled by our quick thinking and our maybe preconceived notions or predicaments or stereotypes or beliefs or limiting beliefs. And so I think it's a part of our life anyway already that you are absolving yourself of a certain level of identity the moment you join in the society. But it's up to you whether you choose to embrace it or to sort of fight against it. You know, something that I really laughed off a couple of times before is I've observed that young teenagers are literally copy-paste in terms of their style of clothing. And it's funny for me because I know I was one of them before. And I remember how all of us at school had literally like 90% of us had the same haircut. And 90% of us had the same brand of a phone and the same brand of shoes. And of course, those who were better off might have had something special, and those who were worse off might have not been able to follow the crowd. But majority of us simply wore the same clothes. And if you go outside and you observe a bunch of teenagers, playing around, whatever, you will see that the majority of them, I can make a bet that you will see majority of them wearing the same kind of pants, same kind of shoes, same colors and stuff. So we have a certain need within us to fit in, and that's fine. We try to find our tribe, but especially as thinking adults, we should beware of any sort of organizations, cultures, people that might want to take advantage of us through this proclivity of ours to fold in, to conform. And of course, while conformity may promise stability, especially on the side of the government, it basically robs us of what makes us unique, what makes us human. So, it's certainly one of those things that I would urge you to recognize and consider for yourself. So yeah. As you can see, I hope I've not given you too many details from the book. As you can see, the book, as old as it may be, it's very relevant, and I think it is one of those timeless pieces that will be relevant no matter the age. So I would definitely recommend you read it. My brother made me aware that there is an additional sort of DLC of a sort for the book, a report that is sort of overseeing the later future of our character's development and stuff. So I'll read that, and next week next week or the week after, I'll see. We'll explore that one as well. But for the time being, I would definitely recommend you read this book. It should be, if it's not already, one of those compulsory books that everyone should be aware of. Now, in terms of the invitation for this week, a challenge of a sort, I would like you to choose one of these three themes, whether it's the technology reliance, whether it's escaping from reality, or whether it's conforming to the crowd or to the society or to the norm. I would like you to consider one of them that you find most relevant to you, and think, what can you do? What changes you could make to your life, or what choices could you make to address this? Because you might find that you're too reliant on technology. Maybe you're addicted to it. Maybe you're too reliant on escaping reality instead of facing it and living here now. Maybe you're allowing yourself to conform to the norms that you don't agree with, and through that you allow others to take advantage of you. Whichever resonates with you most, I would encourage you to explore that and try to find some actionable solutions, some ideas that you will employ in your life to become more free and more yourself in that regard. I've recently abandoned using such social media as Instagram and TikTok and Twitter. And on one side, I understand that maybe not posting there is not helping my podcast grow. But when I did the maths and I realized just how much time I'm wasting on them, and I don't really get much pleasure out of it, it's just a dopamine hit and some sort of stress, I think. It was an easy changeover, and I was inspired by my sister who did the same. So I'm not saying do that, but I'm saying find your own thing and find yourself and take care of yourself, really. So yeah, I think that should be it. Other than that, have a wonderful, wonderful week. Stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time.